you're dreaming of full-time sailboat life, chances are you've been asking yourself what kind of boat to do that with. I'm Nika. This is Floh, Boga, and Django, and we're currently living and working and sailing on Floh's beautiful Hallberg Rassy 35 called
Santana.
And today we want to share 5 things with you that we both absolutely love about Santana and 5 things that we're not so particularly keen about. Because honestly, living full-time on a sailboat isn't always picture perfect, although this is pretty darn close. For me, it's definitely worth the trade-offs that it comes with because I get to live right in this amazing, beautiful nature. And I can move my tiny floating home from A to B. And if I want to, I can be off-grid for months on end. And for getting an idea of what kind of sailboat you would like to live on, it's important to understand what could you live with and what could you live without. And maybe these things that we're sharing is going to spark some ideas on your end. And for those fellow boat nerds, Floh is going to take you into his little nerd corner and he's going to share some pretty interesting stuff about the history of Hallberg Rassy that I definitely didn't know about, and some really interesting figures that are important to compare if you're looking for an ocean-going vessel, like the comfort ratio and the capsizing screening formula. I hope I got that right. We already did a part 1 of this boat tour of Santana where we're more talking about the layout and the living quarters and the specs, the systems on the boat. So if you missed that one, make sure to check it out. I'll link it up there. And if you enjoy this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and maybe leave a comment. We'd love to hear what is it that you love about boat life or about your own boat if you have one. Oh, and a heads up, we wrote down those 5 things that we love and don't like so much about Santana separately, and we didn't check in with each other before we're actually showing them to you on camera. So let's hope there's not gonna be too much boat bickering. Alrighty, let's start. Should we start with good or bad?
Bad? Good.
Schnick, schnack, schnuck.
So you start with something bad.
Okay, one thing that I find a little bit tedious and also for me slight safety issue is the furling main. I'm pretty sure this is on your list too.
Are you? So I go with something bad?
Yeah.
It's the furling boom. I thought about writing the furling boom on the pro list as well.
Oh.
Because as long as nothing breaks, as long as it is working, and as long as you are in good conditions, it is something super easy. You don't have to store anything away, it looks nice and neat, so it could be something positive.
What I like about Santana is that she is easy to handle. On the last passage, Floh was in the need of my help and he wasn't available, so he actually let me handle the boat a little bit by myself, and I got a feel for it a little bit, like how it would potentially be soloing her. And I really like the setup for that because everything is simple. The sail size are small and everything is led back into the cockpit. So the only downside is that the self-steering is a little bit difficult to reach when you're on the helm. So if you don't have the autopilot or the wind vane hooked up, that is a little difficult by yourself, but everything else is really fairly easy to handle. And that's a very big pro.
Yeah, like the owner. So my first pro is it has a full long keel. It is a small boat, it is a light boat, and she sails very well. I'm not afraid of hitting anything or ripping something off because the rudder is directly connected to the keel, and she is going quite well through the waves. And she keeps the course quite well with the long keel, so that is something that I really like. I think it adds to very good sailing
performance.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is yeah. No electrical windlass. This is one for me that is a big negative because I by myself would have a very difficult time to get the anchor up.
But you have me.
I do have you, but there might be emergency cases where you're not, you know, you could be sick or whatever, and I would have to lift anchor by myself, and then there is a way to do it. You can like put a hook on a rope and then lead it back to the wind shear, but if it's harsh conditions, it's extremely difficult. Like I always think of out of the perspective, like what if you had to handle the boat totally by yourself? And I probably wouldn't be able in harsh conditions to get the anchor up by myself. So that for me is a big contrast.
Is it?
Yes.
The salon area is, in my opinion, too small, and I do not like the side kitchen. I think it is so small because of the aft cabin. So if we would move the whole cockpit aft another 3 meters, we could add all of this to the salon area, and you could have different arrangements. It would give a more roomy feeling inside, and for 2 people and 2 dogs living full time in the boat, if the weather is nice, that's fine because we have the cockpit. If the weather is not nice, it is just one room with the kitchen at the side. I like it if the kitchen is a bit separated, and if there's a...
And U-shape. I didn't have any space left for the contra, but I could just add that there. If the kitchen were a U-shaped kitchen, that would be a lot nicer.
And then the seating area more in front. I do not need to have that large table on the one side that can be used as a bed, because we're not going to sail with 6 people.
I was actually going to put the large table, like making it like a lounging area as one of the pros, but I didn't. This one was when you distracted me whilst I was writing it down. What I wanted to say was shallow draft still with a full keel, so that's similar to your full keel. I like the fact that it has actually both combined together. The shallow draft is really nice because you can anchor closer to shore and like tight anchor bays where other people might not be able to anchor, and you can go up rivers, so that's a big pro in my opinion.
This one is a separate cabin for the guests, which is the reason for the negative side of having the small main area. I do like it that we have the aft cabin, and that if somebody or a couple is visiting in a separate bed, so you could easily have 2 people sleep in the aft cabin if it is not full. And I like that it is separate, that they are not more or less sleeping in the main area.
Limited deck space, flat deck space. That is something that I'm missing a little bit, because my yoga mat sort of ish fits up in the front, but it's a little tricky, and there isn't really an area. Well, you can sit up on the top things, but it would be nice to have a little bit more lounging area on the deck, or like sporty area.
Well, con, reversing and maneuvering in port. This is the downside of the long keel and the shallow draft, because for that reason this boat is known to have quite a small rudder, and if you reverse, it more or less doesn't matter which way you're pointing the rudder, it goes either way, most of the time in the direction into the wind, because the bow is so light that the bow turns away from the wind. If you know that, you can calculate the wind, but if you are in a very tight space like a canal, or if you're they just let you into the water and you have to back out, that happened to me last year in January, you have no chance of correcting where the bow is turning, and it's causing me a lot of anxiety when I go in or out of port, because normally we go forward.
Normally you go forward in life, yeah, not backwards. Okay, I never thought I was going to say this, because Carl, I was always like, yeah, I don't need a shower. I can just jump into the ocean. I'm good with just a liter of fresh water to rinse myself. And I do stay strong with that argument if it's warm, the hot shower.
Spoiled.
I do like the hot shower.
Spoiled Nika.
Indoor hot shower.
Pro, the big anchor. It is something that you could probably live with a smaller anchor, but it gave me some really good rest, and a lot of situations where I'm not sure whether it's going to hold. I'm quite sure it's going to hold with this anchor, so that is I would always do that, even if it's really heavy to lift, as I don't have the anchor winch.
Yeah, that is a good thing, that's true. So one thing that's very particular is the bloody shelf in the front cabin. So it's probably not a shelf, I think it's a ladder, so you can go into the front cabin from the hatch. But it's right in front of my head, so when I wake up, I usually hit my head on it, or if I move or something, and it's caused me a couple of bruises. And many times have I been thinking about just getting a saw or a crowbar or something and just like ripping that thing out, because it's annoying. Why do I actually have to sleep on that side of the bed, I wonder?
Well, you don't. Choices you make, I'd say. So that was a pro or a con?
The shelf?
Yeah.
The shelf was a con.
Here we go, the anchor winch, which is a bit funny because I did not have an anchor winch before on my other boat, and it was never a problem because the anchor was much lighter. So that I have the big anchor and the heavy chain, which lets me sleep quite well, causes me to really want an anchor winch.
Another positive is the cockpit for various reasons. I like very much that there's two sides where you can actually fully stretch out, and you can potentially even stretch out on one side with two people and two dogs.
I fit here.
Over this, like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I like to sleep.
And I like that it's covered in the front, like there's a hard dodger actually, and that you can close it up completely and you have a lot of shelter when it's windy, rainy, cold or whatsoever. So yeah, I like the whole cockpit area. It really largens the living space on the boat.
My turn? Well, we heard that before, the shallow draft. I decided to put this into two different pros. One is the long keel, the other one is the shallow draft, because you could have a long keel with much more draft, and if I could choose a boat I would always go for the long keel, because it's adding so much stability while sailing, and I'm so much less afraid that something is ripping off for whatever reason. And this one has also the shallow draft, which makes it really nice. Some special anchorages where you can almost go past the entire anchor field and anchor in between the catamarans, and the potential that you could go upriver is nice as well. So I could go all the way to Berlin.
That'd be cool. Bit too cold for you, I think. Alright, last con on my side is no solid railing. I'm not sure if it's called railing in English. I very much enjoy that on Carl. I have a solid railing. It's for me something that I feel a lot less afraid like to walk on the areas where it's like kind of like small and narrow, especially when you step out of the cockpit onto the deck, or also when you try to go on the boat. It's just nice to have something solid to grab onto, especially if you're lifting heavy things off the boat or onto the boat, but especially safety reason wise. It's something that I have become to really like, and I know it wouldn't look good on this boat, so I totally understand why they're not having it, but for me, if I would ever get another boat, that would be something I'd be looking for. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was it? Con.
Your last con.
Well, unstable and rolling at anchor. It is a bit, I call her a bit tipsy.
Tipsy is drunk.
Which one might lead to the other. So I like to refer to her as tipsy. I think if you have light wind conditions while sailing, she is rolly as well. So I'm going to talk about the comfort ratio later. And she has quite a low number on the comfort ratio. And although it has a center cockpit, which normally brings the number up. And I think that's because she is so tipsy, which is again because of the shallow draft.
Yeah.
So the shallow draft is something positive on the one side and something negative on the other side, because one leads to the other, like the big anchor and the winch.
Yeah. Can't have it all.
Yeah.
How did
I'm
you say
torn.
choose your battles?
Yeah. I know. I'm just torn.
My last one on the list is that she's speedy. Probably in comparison to maybe some other boats, she's not that speedy, but in comparison to what I'm used to, I find her quite speedy, and I'm just loving it. That distances that I would need a lot longer on Carl with Santana, we're covering it in a lot less time, and that is just something that I'm very much enjoying. Speedy Santana.
Well, last pro, deep center cockpit. So you already mentioned a couple of things about I really like this cockpit a lot. One thing that you did not mention is that it is quite deep. So on a lot of other center cockpits, you're more or less sitting on the boat, so that you can pass into the aft cabin through these side benches. And here you're really sitting in the boat, and
makes it very safe.
here, this is very, I don't know if you can see this, but it's very high. So I mean, if the dogs are inside, they can't just fall out.
Yeah.
If there's a bit of splash, you're very dry, very wind protected. If you're sleeping in the cockpit, which I prefer, well, you can't feel that you're outside except for the open sky.
Yeah, that is a good one now. All right. Well, those are the 5 pros and cons, and then I'm gonna leave you with Floh and Nerd Corner now. So enjoy that.
So, well, welcome to the Nerd Corner. I have no idea why I'm supposed to do the nerdy stuff, but well, as I was asked to. I think there are a couple of things quite interesting about this boat in particular and Hallberg Rassy in general, because what I did not know before, I just knew the name Hallberg Rassy, but when I read about this boat and why it is originally called the Rasmus 35, I found out that there were two different boatyards in Sweden. One was the Hallberg boatyard and one was a German guy called Christoph Rassy. When he went to Sweden, he bought the old Hallberg yard because he wanted to move on to a bigger one and started building his own boats. Quite interesting that Hallberg invented the production boat. Before that, you went to the boatyard and you were talking about what kind of specifics you wanted to have. And Hallberg, Harry had that he has an external designer create one boat and then he's selling the exact same boat a couple of different times. So like Ford did with the automobile in the US. So Hallberg was quite successful with that, moved on to a bigger yard. Then Christoph Rassy bought his old one and worked on an own boat design. And he got a Swedish designer on board called, with I think very funny name, Olle Enderlein, and Olle Enderlein helped him to, well, create the Rasmus 35. And the first two versions were completely built in mahogany, so they were completely wooden boats. And when they found out that they are working quite well, he started the production in fiberglass molds. A couple of years later, Harry Hallberg, he wanted to quit his business, which was still running quite successful and was much more known than the Rassy brand. He offered it to Christoph Rassy. He bought the biggest shipyard, including the name, and he combined it to Hallberg Rassy. So Hallberg and Rassy never designed a single boat together, but it's still the brand name. And the first real Hallberg Rassy was the Rasmus 35, so this boat, which made the entire brand popular. And until today they are known to be quite stiff and very well produced. They built, I think, 780 hulls in total from 1967 to 1978, and this one was built in 78 with the hull number 666, and then it's called Santana, which I think is a funny coincidence. Let's put it that way. And it was built by the production designer of Hallberg Rassy, who built this boat for his own personal use. So this is why it has some special features, a different interior, a lead keel, a couple of things like this. And then right after it was finished, he changed to Najat, who started building the exact same boat with the exact same designer as well. And you can see a lot of Swedish boats from Sweden yards and Najat and Malö. They all look alike from this area. And because he went to Najat, he couldn't sail a Hallberg Rassy, and he put it on the market. So I think it is sailed in somewhere in Germany since the 1980s, and has never left the Baltic Sea before my friend Bo bought it, I think now about 10 years ago. He sailed it for 2 seasons in the Baltic Sea, and then he had it transferred to Elba, where I sailed my folk boat, met him, and then, well, the rest is history. My folk boat's not sailing anymore, and I bought the boat from Bo. So when I was looking for a boat, I wanted to have a boat which is mainly safe. I wasn't looking for speed, and I wasn't looking for comfort or space. I wanted to have a safe boat that I can trust, and this is why I was happy with that it's underpowered, that it has a small sail plan. And then after I bought it, because I had been on the boat a couple of times with my friend Bo, I liked the way it sailed, it met my needs, and then I found out that there are a couple of numbers or safety numbers that you can compare. So there are 5 nerd statistics that I would like to share with you. 3 of them are interesting and 2 of them are fundamental to me. So the first one is the sail area to displacement. Everything under 16, you talk about a boat which is underpowered, and Santana has a 15. Then there's the ballast to displacement. Everything above 40 is considered good, and Santana has a 45. That means that 45% of the entire weight are in the ballast, so it is a very safe and stable boat. And then there's the displacement to length, which gives you an idea on how fast she is on hull speed, and there she is exactly in the middle with 257. And then there are two that I like to pay attention to, which is the comfort ratio and the capsize screening formula, because both are talking about an ocean-going vessel and blue water performance, where the comfort ratio gives you an idea on how comfortable it is to actually sail offshore. And generally you say everything above 30 is an ocean-going vessel, and Santana is only rated at a 29.4, whereas the capsize screening formula, which gives you an idea on the safety, you say everything below a 2.0 is considered a blue water yacht, and the Santana's ranking at a 1.7. And that is super important for me because it gives me that idea about the safety. And the comfort ratio, it's not terrible, it's on the edge, but I can tell you, you can feel it if you have nasty waves. So that's it with the numbers. And my personal opinion about this is, could be faster, could be bigger, but for me it's a boat that I can handle and which is, in my opinion, super safe.
All right, and I think that was a good little nerdy corner for all of you. If you're still here, then that's great. And if you still have any questions,
I already have some questions.
He could talk about this for a lot longer, believe me. So if you still have any questions left after all of this, then please leave us a comment and we'll get back to you. In the end, in my opinion, it's not about finding the perfect boat, but it's about finding the one that feels right under your feet, the one that carries your dreams, the one that gives you space and lets you breathe and lets you grow and live life on your own terms. Santana surely isn't flawless, but right now she's allowing us to live the life that we truly love, and that's what makes her the perfect fit for this chapter. But now it's time to lift anchor and head the bow towards a new continent, Africa. And more about that next time.